Good afternoon. It's 1:30. It's time for the Education Administration Committee to start. Welcome. I welcome everyone. Before we begin, though, I'd like to have our clerk please call the roll.
Representatives Baum, Bulso, Butler, Sapicki, Fritz, Gant, Gillespie, Hasted, Hurt, Jones, Lafferty, Love, McKenzie, Parkinson, Reagan, Ritchie, Stevens, Warner, Vice Chairman Slater, Chairman White.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Members, before we get started, I will recognize you. Want to recognize anybody in the audience today with announcements. Before that, I would like to call on Chairman Reagan. We always, for those who haven't been here before, we always start the meeting with a prayer, asking for wisdom and guidance as we make decisions based to support our children.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. I ask that you join me in a moment of silence for the events of earlier this week. Let's lift up in prayer those most in need at this time. Almighty God, we come before you humbly, acknowledging that you rule the universe, that things happen according to your will, even when we do not understand it. We ask humbly, Lord, that you would guide us through difficult times. We pray especially for those who have lost children and loved ones to unexplainable, incomprehensible evil. We know that according to your word, evil exists and roams the world. We ask, Lord, that you would give us strength to endure, and most especially those who have suffered the losses. Go with us now. Bless this group that we might make decisions that are in accordance with your will, and with wisdom that we are able to carry out the charges which we have agreed to accept in our offices. We ask this humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Chairman Reagan. Members, does anybody have an announcement or recognition? Chairman Reagan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to introduce my shadow today, Kaya Shepard, who is a student Eagle and has won first place in the local science fair and honorable mention in the Southern Appalachian Science and Engineering Fair. Let's make her welcome.
Representative Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would like to ask if they would stand. There are students here from the Tennessee Alliance for Equity in Education. Please make them feel welcome. In addition, Mr. Chairman, we also have students from Tennessee State University's social work program, if they'll stand. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Love. If I may add, I just had some of those students in my office. Caleb, would you stand up? Caleb Sy. I was at East High School. I was at East High School and spoke to the government class about a month back, I think it was, Caleb, and about 40 students in there. And when I left that classroom, I says, the world's going to be okay. They were sharp. And so thank you, Caleb, and please take that message back to those young people in your school, East High School. Representative Ritchie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Isaac Barnett, if you don't mind standing up, he's been shadowing around with me today. He's in here from Sneedville, Tennessee, and seeing a little bit about the entire process. Got to sit in on a couple committees, some bills getting introduced, listen to some of the lobbyists that had to come in there and explain some of their concerns on some of the bills. So enjoyed this day, and if everybody would please give him a round of applause.
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two recognitions. First, Miss Hannah Walker, if you'd stand up. Miss Hannah is from Powell, Tennessee. She's a 7th grader, and she's shadowing the 32nd District Office today. Thank you.
Representative McKenzie.
And one other
Oh,
recognition.
go ahead. You're recognized,
Thank
Representative
you, Mr.
Fritz.
Chairman. One other recognition. Chris Whaley. He's president of Roane State Community College, without a doubt the finest community college in the state of Tennessee. Let's give him a hand. And Mr. Chairman, I think Dennis Turpin is traveling with him. She's TCAT in Harriman. I don't see her here, but I'd like to give her a warm welcome as well.
Thank you. Now let's go to Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to acknowledge a friend since 1983, since I first entered the Hallowell Hall of Fisk University, my fraternity brother, Napoleon Butler, out of North Carolina. I'd like to welcome him.
Chairman Lafferty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too have a shadow today, and it's not just paranoia this time. I'd like to welcome Mr. Andrew Ivy with Tennessee Eagle Forum. Oh, please stand up. There you go. Hey. Hey, Mr. Chairman, I may have a couple of other recognitions. I don't see them in the room just yet, so just be ready to gavel me down after a while. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, members, this is Tennessee Board of Regents, TBR's Day on the Hill. Y'all stand up if you're here in here. Anyone from TBR? Great. Members, anyone else? Before we start with our first bill, we will start with item number 16. Make sure, I think I'm right. Yeah, item number 16, House Bill 27. But members, let me have your attention real quick before we begin. Just to keep we had a few issues last time. As you know, when you want to get the attention of the chair to make a comment or a question on any of the bills, you always raise your hand. We put your name up here in order. If you desire to call the question, don't shout it out. That causes confusion. Raise your hand. We will put your name on the list. And when we get to you, if you still want to call the question, that way I can go through those who have requested to speak up to that point. So I won't recognize you if you call the question without me recognizing you, okay? I think that'll solve a little bit of the issue we had last week. Okay, members, we're on item number 16, House Bill 27. Leader Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You got a motion and a second?
Mr. Chairman, there are two amendments that should be traveling with it from sub, which is amendment coded 4053 and 4114. Both are needed.
Okay, you want to add both of them? Okay. Item number, members, on item amendment 1, amendment 4053 does rewrite the bill. Any objection to adding it to the bill for proper discussion? Got a motion and a second. Any objection to the question? Hearing none, all those in favor of adding the amendment to the bill indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. So it's properly amended. You want to describe the bill now or go to the other amendment?
Mr. Chairman, if we could add the other one on as well, that would be preferable.
We got a motion and a second on amendment 4114. Any objection to adding it to the bill? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Moves. Now we're back on your bill as amended, Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So as amended, what this bill does, and most of y'all heard me talk about this last year, if we have a student that is an overachiever and they finish college in 3 years, then they should be able to keep that Hope Scholarship amount for graduate school as long as they do that graduate school right here in the great state of Tennessee. That student has gone above and beyond. They've done more hours. They've, possibly gone to summer school, done additional programs. They should be rewarded for that eagerness and effectiveness through their collegiate experience. Right now, what happens is they just lose that 4th year. And so it just goes back into the scholarship pool, and that's fine. But we have students that, and some schools that are measuring graduation rates by 6-year graduation rates. I don't like that. I don't think y'all do either, but that's the way of the world these days. So when those that are getting through in 3 years should be rewarded for that if they're going off to graduate school in this state. So that's what the bill does, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, members, that explanation, questions, comments to the sponsor of the bill? Chairman Warner? The question has been called. Thank you for doing that appropriately. Thank you. Okay. All those in favor of moving House Bill 27 out to government ops indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you for bringing this, Leader. Members, we do have 2 bills today that we have guests, and we will get to those. I want to jump back over to item 1 through 15 first, or get as far down because they've been waiting also. So let's look at your agenda on item number 1. House Bill 597 by Representative Powell. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment,
Your amendment is?
3899.
That's correct. It does rewrite the bill. Got a motion, second on the amendment. Any objection to adding it to the bill? Hearing none, all those in favor of adding 3899 to House Bill 597 indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. You're now amended and you may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The bill itself is relatively simple. It established a standardized entrepreneurship training program to be offered by the Board of Regents, Center for Workforce Development, its institutions through the Tennessee online learning platform. With that, I stand ready for questions.
There's an explanation. Any further discussion you'd like to ask the sponsor committee? Any objection to the question then? No objection here. All those in favor of moving House Bill 597 out to finance indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Item number 2 by Representative Harris. This is, you got a motion second, House Bill 549.
Thank you, Chairman. And so we do have an amendment on here.
The amendment is 6584.
That's correct.
Okay, you got a motion, second amendment. It does rewrite the bill. Any objection to adding it to the bill for proper discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill is amended. Representative Harris, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee. This bill we discussed a couple weeks ago, and we went back and had an amendment placed on here, which rewrites the bill. And so what it does is it keeps our higher education institutes from having to come before us in committee to discuss their parking unless it is otherwise to authorize the charging of fines or citations. And with that, I renew my motion.
Motion been renewed, but Chairman Reagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to compliment the sponsor of this bill on working to get this amendment right. As a reminder, the previous version of this bill had some entanglements with some constitutional issues, specifically Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and our Article 1 in the Tennessee Constitution, and he's made an effort to fix that. I congratulate him on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Chairman Spicky.
Question on the bill.
Question's been called. Any objection to that question? Hearing none. All those in favor of moving House Bill 549 out to GovOps indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, committee.
Thank you, Representative Harris. Item 3, House Bill 276 by Representative McKenzie. You got a motion and a second. You do have an amendment. Your amendment, Representative McKenzie?
My amendment number is 4657.
That is correct. You got a motion second, rewrites the bill. Any objection to adding it to the bill? Hearing none, all those in favor adding 4657, House Bill 276, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Your bill is properly amended. You may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you may recall, last year in the Senate, they actually unanimously passed this bill. We didn't get to hear it in the House, but this has actually been an improvement as a result of working with THEC. And it's migrated our $5,000 a year award for minority teaching fellows program to a minority scholarship program that is changed from a loan to a grant base. This is just another tool in our tool chest to increase the number of quality teachers that we have across the state of Tennessee. And additionally, instead of $5,000, it covers the cost of tuition and the average cost of tuition at our state-funded schools. But if a student chooses to go to a private independent school, that pays that state amount toward their tuition at their private institution.
Any further on that? Okay. Chairman Sapicki, you're recognized.
Thank you. To the sponsor, in the bill, it talks about the definition of a minority. Can you tell us what that says in the bill?
The word, there is Black, African American, who resides any Black racial groups of Africa, Hispanic, Latino, Mexican, Puerto Rican, Cuban, Central or South American, or other Spanish culture or origin regardless of race. Asian American, who's had origins in the original peoples of the Far East, Southeast Asia, and Indian subcontinent. Also Native Hawaiian, other Pacific Islander, who has origins in the Pacific Islands. American Indian, Alaskan Native, who has origins in any of the original peoples of North America.
Chairman Reagan, Sapicki.
They kind of look alike.
Whoa.
Joe,
We haven't voted on this bill yet
Anybody want to call the question? Hey, Chairman Sapicki, follow up?
Yeah, so in the bill, it also removes the requirement to teach in our public schools for 4 years after graduation. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, and we can have someone to speak on that, there is a hook to have them, the only removing that was the burdensome 9% scholarship, the 9% loan repayment. I am looking for that. To my knowledge, that was not removed.
It is. Chairman Sapicki?
Mr. Chairman, can we go to legal and get an explanation on that, please?
We're out of session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Katie Robertson, Office of Legal Services. Under the amendment, a person who receives this scholarship is no longer required to teach and pay back. They still are required to make the commitment to teach, though.
Chairman Sapicki, you want?
For legal, so if we pass this bill, they're no longer required to teach in Tennessee, but they're required to teach.
Give us 1 minute, committee.
That's gonna be a deal breaker. It is right now, but I think we've inadvertently removed it in the bill. It may have been inadvertently removed in the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Katie Robertson, Office of Legal Services. So in making the decision on whether to award a person who meets the eligibility requirements to receive this award, the selection committee can consider the evidence of the applicant's commitment to teaching, including but not limited to the applicant's completion of the Department of Education and Training career clusters and other experiences that would indicate the applicant's interest in teaching. It does not specify if it would be public school, but that's something that the selection committee could look toward.
Follow up while we're out of session. Okay. Anyone else? Representative Ritchie, while we're out of session.
Thank you, Chairman. And legal, so my understanding on looking at that, it's just, there's just a stated commitment, but there's no teeth or anything. And that was going to be one of the questions when we come back out of session. There's no requirements that they actually have to teach anywhere. It's just they have to say that they're going to teach, correct?
You recognize.
Thank you. Katie Robertson, Office of Legal Services. Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions while we're out of session for legal? Seeing we're back in session. Chairman Reagan, I will recognize you, then I'll go back to sponsor McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to the sponsor, I have a couple of questions. One is in your definition of minorities. In particular, you have mentioned some of these like Native Hawaiian, American Indian, that bring up questions about mixed races. Did I miss that in here? Do you have anything in there that requires a certain percentage or recognition by an American Indian tribe to be qualified for that?
You recognize Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I am not. I don't want to get that specific in terms of what considers a person biracial. I think the way this is defined has been standard, and I want to stick with that standard of what it takes to be part of that minority group.
Chairman Reagan.
I'm sorry, sir. I have to disagree with you about a standard. We've had members of our own body that have had mixed racial backgrounds, and the question becomes, how are we going to determine that? There are other problems that are related to that. For example, you have under Asian, the question arises, where do the Japanese fit into this?
Representative McKenzie.
Last I checked, they are part of the Far East. And again, as it says, who has origins in. So that's where they fit in. This group is inclusive.
Chairman Reagan, you recognize, and
All right.
Chairman Reagan, we
Yes.
also have TSAC here if we want some clarity from them.
All right. One last question, then I'll ask TSAC to clarify. On your designation here of the Indian subcontinent, that includes an area which is kind of fuzzy. Does Pakistan or the other countries that are not part of India as a nation fit on that Indian subcontinent?
Representative McKenzie.
I would ask legal or someone else to opine on that. But however, as you use subcontinent, I think we as a country have a clear knowledge of what that means and what that doesn't mean. But we can have legal opine on that, or you can. But I don't know how it's germane to this particular bill. But I think those definitions have been clear. But I would love to hear what legal has to say on that.
Okay. Without objection, members, I'm going to go out of session. And Mr. Hanneman, would you be willing to offer any clarity? Is Mr. Hanneman in the room?
He's testifying in the Senate.
He's testifying in the Senate. Okay. We'll go back to legal. We're out of session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Katie Robertson, Office of Legal Services. The definition in the amendment of minority is the same definition that's in rule currently. And TSAC would have rule promulgation authority, so they can determine on how they decide who meets the criteria of a minority.
Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to legal, would that include the determination on the issues that I just mentioned, for example, Indian subcontinent?
Yes, TSAC would be determining of what information would be required to provide proof of minority for the eligibility requirements of the scholarship.
Okay, thank you, legal. And Mr. Chair, I would have a question for Mr. Hanlon if and when he shows up on that issue.
Okay. Representative Kinsey? Wait, excuse me. Let's go back in session.
Okay.
Now you're recognized.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to ask if we could get Claude Personnel from the, maybe he could. speak on it.
Mr. Presnell from Takua, would you be willing to come forward? You're also on our speakers list. He's on the list. See if you can offer any clarity. We're back out of session. You are recognized, sir.
Dr. Claude Presnell with the Tennessee Independent Colleges and Universities. Basically, my position is the same as the explanation from legal on that issue, is that TSAC has the ability through rule promulgation to accomplish it. And here comes Lou. So I'll let him answer that directly.
Okay. Mr. Hanneman, we're out of session. I'll let you seat, and then I will let Chairman Reagan address the question. We're still out of session. Chairman Reagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir. And since you obviously missed the question, in the bill itself, it defines minority, and my question revolved around specifically mixed race, as in what percentage of American Indian, for example, do they have to be recognized by a tribe? Do they have provide any kind of proof of that? And then a second question that was asked, which was in the bill, it talks about the Indian subcontinent. And so my question is exactly what constitutes the Indian subcontinent?
Mr. Hanneman, you're recognized.
Thank you. Lou Hanneman with the, in this case, the Tennessee Student Assistance Corporation. I'm not aware that we have any percentages prescribed towards any particular, proportion of ethnicity in our rules. I can certainly find out for you, and I'm not sure that we identify particular areas of the sub-cabinet. It's my understanding that with regard to this program, we do allow the institutions to identify the pools of students on our behalf, and that we use the certification from the institution.
Chairman Reagan.
Thank you. And so to the point that you brought up, we have no standard statewide. Is that what you're telling me?
In terms of what would define a mixed race?
Well, any of these
Or-
categories or criteria, whether it's American Indian, Alaskan Native, or Native Hawaiian, or for that matter, what constitutes Indian subcontinent?
I think for the purposes of our rules in financial aid, and I think this is our only, financial aid program bound to, race-related criteria. I don't think we have any of those kind of classifications fully drawn out. Again, I think we rely on certification from the institutions that the students who may or may not identify as any one of those groups actually fits those categories.
Chairman Reagan.
So we have a certain senator from the Northeast that identified as a Native American.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. This is point of order.
This is
One
Point of-
second, Representative Jones.
This,
Hang on,
this
hang
is
on.
this is not germane to the bill. This is off the bill. Talking about a senator from another state. This is point of order. Can we stay on the bill and stay on the
Okay,
issue?
the point of order is in, okay, Chairman Reagan, let's keep it on the bill.
All right. So an individual who identifies as a member of a Native American tribe who has 1/64th of genetic material related to that particular group, would they qualify in this criteria?
I think we are relying again on the certification from the institution. So if they are meeting the definitions as the institutions have laid out for their identification of these groups, then
So my original statement stands, we have no statewide standard?
that's as far as our financial aid portfolio, that's my understanding.
Thank you.
Any other Representative Love, you're recognized while we're out of session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to Lou, you're familiar with this program and you're familiar with this piece of legislation. To your understanding, all this bill changes is the loan criteria or the loan portion, correct?
That's correct. I mean, the program's been in place since 1989. And as I understand, one, it does increase the award amount to the cost of tuition and fees, but the balance of the bill, the only change is changing from a loan forgiveness program to a grant scholarship.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Ritchie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Lou. Specific question on the current program, how it currently is, not what we're looking at right here. If a student is pledged or they have to go be an instructor or teacher, or educator somewhere with this right here, if they withdraw or change their study to become an educator, are there any repayment penalties or anything of that nature under the current plan?
Under the current program, it is a loan forgiveness program, which uses a model of essentially one-to-one. For each year of financial aid that you receive, you agree to teach in a public school for an approximately reciprocal time.
Follow up.
Thank you. So currently, they are receiving that. They're going to have to pay it back if they do not, or if they go and educate somewhere, then it is forgiven. If we pass this, it's going under a grant portion to where if they went to school for 2 years and decided they wanted to change, there's no repayment with that right there. So that could have been dollars that could have went to a student that decided to go forward. Is that fair to say?
I think it's fair to say, but with a caveat. One of the things that we did in recent memory was we changed the eligibility criteria for the program. This program used to be eligible for students starting in the freshman year of college, on through to graduation. And what we did find quite frequently was that students changed their mind, and they may change their mind for a lot of really good reasons. They go off to become, an economist or a neuroscientist. Great decisions. But they're left with a loan to pay back at 9% interest. And so what we realize is that the students who are least likely to transition out of a program are juniors and seniors, and those students pursuing a graduate degree. And so when we refocused on that population, the attrition rate for changing their minds dropped off radically. And so the success of the program has gotten a lot stronger. And so I think that this new version of this program still holds to that juniors and seniors, because arguably in an education provider program, once you reach that point, you're pretty well decided. There's always factors to drop out, but
Another follow-up.
Thank you, Chairman. So to clarify, currently, if somebody changes, they've got to repay.
correct.
If this passes, there's no repayment and they got those 2 years because it was under a grant, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes.
One last, Chairman Sapicki?
So Lou, so in the bill, it also talks about, I'm losing my voice here, so they have on eligibility, receive the award until they complete an education prep program, they lose eligibility, or 4 years from the time of elapsed from the student received their first award. So you're saying juniors and seniors take advantage of this? Is that correct? Was what I just heard from you?
And graduate students.
And graduate students. So they could continue to receive this money for up to 4 years from the first time they received the grant.
That's correct.
Okay, but under the current plan, just to reiterate, that if they would change and say, I don't want to be a teacher anymore, they would owe that money back to the state of Tennessee, versus if we go ahead with this bill as it's amended, now they would not owe that money back to the taxpayers.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any further discussion, Mr. Yes, sir. Yes,
Mr. Chair-
Mr. Hanneman.
If I could, for just a moment, go back to Chairman Reagan's question. I have had some clarification sent over from our folks in the office. The definitions that we use in rule are all tied to federal definitions that have been in place for several years, and we verify through driver's license applications that the minority teaching fellowship program applicants are in fact minorities.
Any further discussion while we're out of session? To Mr. President, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just would say that this issue of trying to get as many minority teachers into the classroom is a critical issue, and the Department of Education considers it such a critical issue that the teacher preparation report card has an entire element on how we are engaging, minority students in the teaching profession. And based on the last report that we received, over half of the teacher preparation programs, both public and private, were not meeting expectations on minority enrollment. And so I'm just saying that this really could be a big benefit to attract those, again, at the junior senior level who are really committed to the teaching profession to enter into that teaching profession. And so right now in the state of Tennessee, 37% of the students are students of color in our K-12 system, and only 16% of the teachers are teachers of color. So we would see this as a really good tool to help us meet the expectations of the Department of Education on the minority enrollment piece. So it would be helpful to us.
Chairman Sapicki, do you have a question while we're out of session?
I do.
You recognize.
So I hear you.
Mhm.
We currently have a program that's instituted to do that. I don't think there's, and I'm speaking for myself, but I don't believe there's any member here that would agree with the bill sponsor to possibly increase the amount of money to cover tuitions and fees to make it more attractive for those individuals. The problem I think, I'm hanging up on is, one, we're removing a requirement to teach in Tennessee. Number two, we're removing the ability to pay the money back. If you're going to commit to this grant that's coming from the taxpayers of Tennessee, then commit to the grant and help us help our school system. I don't think anybody here is too upset about increasing the grant to meet the financial needs of tuition and fees. That makes logical sense to me. But to take away the other safeguards there to protect the taxpayers' investment, I'm thinking that's probably the hang up right there.
Chairman Reagan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And whichever one of you wants to tackle this one. The current program, as I understood what you said, is not fulfilling the percentage. What was it, 37%? Is that correct, sir?
Yeah, 30 in the K-12 system, public K-12 system, 37% of the students are students of color, and only 16% of the teachers are teachers of color.
Okay,
Right.
and this program has been in effect how long?
You had a date on that?
Mr. Hanneman?
How long is this?
So since 1989, we've had about 50% of the students have actually followed through on their commitments into the program.
And since the modification of junior, senior, do you know by chance?
The actual number, I don't know. I can get it to you. But I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 or so since we've made the shift. A significantly higher percentage of completion and actually following through on the commitments.
Chairman Reagan, I'm recognize you, then I'm going to go to the sponsor of the bill, McKenzie. You're recognized.
Okay, so my question, when you said 100 or so, you're talking about individuals that have taken advantage of this?
Yes, sir.
But you can't tell me what percentage. Has that changed the percentage that we're looking at of minorities that are becoming teachers?
I mean, I would have to do the analysis. I can tell you that since the program's inception, we've had a little over 1,000 participants total. And about half of those have gone on to actually complete their teaching obligations under the current program. The other half have either paid the money back or have declared bankruptcy or have defaulted entirely.
Legal wants to make a clear, which I think would be helpful while we're out of session. Legal, you're recognized.
Hey, thank you, Katie Robertson, Legal Services. I just wanted to clarify on a statement I made previously. Subsection B of the amendment does require that to participate in this scholarship program, it's for students who desire to teach in public schools of the state.
You recognized. Okay, we now, President McKenzie, you recognize while we're out of session.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is just a clarification. As you all know, as this bill went through subcommittee, as several of you all know, the issue was on THEC did not want to stay in the loan repayment business. It's a huge tax on them. There's a tax that our taxpayers pay for that. So we were able to work through that. So I would like Lou to maybe speak to that.
That is correct, Mr. Hanneman.
Yes, sir. So, I think over the last several years, I mean, this committee and this body has certainly seen us bring, changes to current programs to move away from the loan forgiveness program. This program is one of two remaining loan forgiveness programs that we have. And so, during this subcommittee conversation, it was brought up whether or not, THEC was in favor of the bill as it was originally drafted. And, again, deferred on that. It involved an increase to the award amount, but did make the comment that converting to a grant program, an incentivizing program is our preferred, glide slope for these programs. One, managing the loan portfolio is not something that the state would like to be in the business of any longer. And two, there is a need for teachers, as Dr. Presnell has stated, and that a program that incents the pursuit of that, we think will deliver product or graduates in the same way without then burdening students with debt if they make a decision to change their mind.
Thank you, members. Any further discussion to our two guests while we're out of session? Representative Parkinson.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Can you get me when we come back in session?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Any further discussion while we're out of session? Okay, we're back. Thank you, gentlemen. We're back in session. Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask the sponsor to consider rolling this bill for a week, if he will, so he can get, the small details worked out with other members.
I will recognize the sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, as I was sitting here listening to this conversation, I do think this is that good to great kind of a thing. I think it's a great bill. Some people think it's a good bill. I'm definitely willing to work on these details. But at the end of the day, 50% graduation rate, I think, and this is with a strong program, freshman through senior, with it being junior, senior now, that number's probably more up to like 70, 80, maybe even 90%. This is a good program that's going to get people into our classrooms, but I am absolutely willing to work with any and everyone to make this bill better. So yes, I'd like to ask my bill to be rolled 1 week.
Okay, that is a proper motion. The bill is run. Chairman Haston, would you like to add something before we move
Point
on?
of order, I just wanted to make sure before we went through this process, make sure it hadn't been calendared 3 times officially, or if we're still in good shape for that not to be an issue.
We're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, House Bill 276 by Reverend Kinsey, rolled for 1 week.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee.
Thank you, sir. Let's go to item number 4, members. House Bill 692 by Representative Parkinson. And we do have some people request to testify on this. So we're now on House Bill 692. Representative Parkinson, you have an amendment?
Yes, sir. And if we can get the amendment on for sake of discussion, that would be.
Members, it does rewrite the bill, so it's Amendment 5145. Is that what you have?
Yes, sir, that is.
Okay, members, without objection, do I have? Got a motion, second on the amendment. All those in favor, add it to the bill, indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Your bill is properly amended. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I get a roll call vote on this bill, please?
You may.
Thank you. You need 3 hands now at this point?
No,
I'm one of 3 hands, Mr. Chair. I'm one of 3 hands, Mr. Chair.
You got it. You got it.
Thank you.
Got it.
Thank you.
You don't need 3 hands.
Thank you. It'd be nice if the other Democrat was listening.
Go ahead. Go.
It sure could, right? Right. Right.
Okay, you got 3 hands. You're recognized. Go ahead.
Thank you. Ooh-wee. Thank you, sir. So Mr. Chair and committee, this is a very important piece of legislation, and I know it is a piece of legislation that some consider a dramatic change, but it's not a dramatic change, and I'll explain why. But before I begin explaining why, I want to walk you down this path so that we can make this personal. Imagine this scenario. You have a trusted business partner in your already struggling business that comes to you and says, hey, I have this great idea. And this idea will grow our business and net us a return of over 75% in 5 years. But we have to fund it with $100,000 that you have saved up in your children's savings account. Now, keep in mind, remember, this is a trusted friend, so you go along with the idea. You invest the $100,000 rather in year 1, but there's no return. The friend comes back and he says, it will work. Trust me, it will work. So you invest another $100,000 of your child's savings account into the company, but this year, your partner cooks the books to make it seem like the company is actually doing better when in reality it's not. And then your friend comes back to you again in year 3 and asks for another $100,000. And you're getting skeptical, but you still give in and give him yet another $100,000 of your children's savings account. Now you're $300,000 in with money from your children's savings account, and your wife is beginning to look at you sideways. Year 4 comes and the friend returns asking for yet another $100,000. This time you question him real hard, and you find out he's been partying with the money that you've invested, buying liquor, hanging out, being a man about the town. But yet, you still give in and give him yet another $100,000 of your child's savings. At this point, you're so far in, you're almost too far in to turn around. Year 5 comes and you ask, how much of that 75% return have we progressed to? And with his head hung down low in shame, he says, not 1%. There has literally been zero return on the $500,000 you've invested of your children's savings. At this point, your wife is furious. She demands you fire your partner and you do so. Then you hire another partner who makes some adjustments and sells the same rosy idea and talks you out of yet another $100,000 of your children's savings account. Your wife is telling you no, don't do it. But at this point, you're a bit embarrassed, and your competitors, on the other hand, are hitting it out of the park with the same exact business model with slight adjustments. After 2 more years and $200,000 more, you fire the new partner. And this time, you hire a superstar in your business field. But after the superstar arrives and sees the shambled state of the business, she resigns immediately. But you keep investing and investing until after 13 years of investment with no return, your wife says, "That's it, I want a divorce." My question to you, how many of us here on this committee would keep investing our children's savings into a business for several years with no return on the investment? While this is an analogy where the individual only lost $1 million, we, the state, are that individual. However, we haven't lost $100,000 in a fictitious story in a year. We've lost an investment of over 1 billion hard-earned tax dollars on a failed business venture called the Achievement School District. Let me say that part one more time. Most of us in here wouldn't let their own personal money be lost past year one, let alone year 13. But we have invested over $1 billion, that's $1 billion with a B, of taxpayer dollars to a failed experiment with zero return on our investment. Not for 1 year, not for 2 years, not for 3 years, but for 13 years. 13 years. $100 million per year. And in today's budget proposal, yet another $100 million of taxpayer dollars is being proposed by the trusted friend. I would venture to say again, none of us would invest our own or our children's personal savings into a failed business model like that. Well, why would we invest our hardworking tax-paying citizens' dollars like that into the failed state-run Achievement School District? In 2010, the Achievement School District was created from Race to the Top application. The original goal was to take schools in the bottom 5% to the top 25% in 5 years. Unfortunately, not one school went to the top 25%, nor did any school in the 13 years of the Achievement School District crack the bottom 25%. Additionally, the state has invested over $1 billion again of taxpayer dollars into the ASD experiment with zero return on the dollar. The children are what matters. We must find a better and more successful and streamlined approach to turnaround work in our state. House Bill 692 will rebrand and restructure the Tennessee Achievement School District. This is what it does. Number one, it reduces the size of government. Now, as a Democrat, I didn't have to run on that, but many of my colleagues did. It reduces the size of government, smaller government. Right now, the state has 2 state-run school districts, the state authorizer or charter commission and the Achievement School District. Again, the Achievement School District has had an investment of over $1 billion with no return. Again, we are currently funding 2 state-run school districts. That is duplication of services and a waste of tax dollars. This bill takes the state-run school district and other components of the Department of Education and combines the functionality into one portal called the Tennessee Education Achievement Portal. The Tennessee Education Achievement Portal becomes the centerpiece for all things education support for all schools across the entire state of Tennessee. What does TEAP look like? Tennessee Education Achievement Portal is the education hub that will provide each LEA with access to educational support. It becomes a grant portal. It becomes a portal for professional development resources for educators and school leadership and district leadership. The portal for guidance for LEAs and school level leaders, teachers, students, parents for providing literacy skills, instructions as defined in Tennessee Code. The portal for instructional materials and strategies for LEAs to use to mitigate learning loss, remediation, and student acceleration programs. The portal for best practices to help educators develop students into professional readers and more. Here's our challenge. The Achievement School District has been a failure. This is the reason why we hear a growing cry to close it and try a different approach. However, we are not closing the Achievement School District. We are rebranding, restructuring, and repurposing the ASD's mission and duties. House Bill 692 does not close the ASD. It simply rebrands it, along with changing the structure just a bit while phasing the ASD into a shiny new vehicle called the Tennessee Education Achievement Portal. No charter management contracts will be cut short. I think that's important to note. Let me say this one more time. No charter schools will be harmed in this process. No existing charter schools in the ASD will be harmed, as by law, they have the choice of going into the LEA or a charter commission upon exiting the ASD. In fact, not all of the interventions that are available to the Commissioner of Education will continue to be available with the exception of school takeover for our lowest performing schools. This bill also gives the commissioner approximately 4 years to get the waiver changed in regards to ESSA with the Department of Education. This bill also calls for vigorous interventions for underperforming schools with a focus on preventing schools for coming into priority or into the ASD's bottom 5%. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'm open for any questions.
Thank you, Representative Parkinson, for that presentation. Members, we have the Department of Education would like to testify on this also. Is it, before you entertain questions of a sponsor, any objection going out of session? Here none. We're out of session. Can I bring up the Department of Education, Mr. Cook, Ms. Carney, Mr. Piercy, and Mr. Kopp? Yes, sir. Okay, we're out of session, and when y'all have a seat, you know the drill. Just recognize yourself, and you may respond to what we've been addressed so far, and then we will go there. Who wants to start out? Mr. Cook?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is Reed Cook. I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs at the Department of Education.
Yes, I'm going to limit your comments to about 2 minutes each, so unless all of you need to combine, but yes.
Good afternoon, Chairman White and committee members. My name is Robin Kopp. I'm the Assistant Commissioner of School Turnaround and also serving as the Interim State Turnaround Superintendent.
Ms. Carney?
Good afternoon, committee. Dr. Eve Carney, Deputy Commissioner at the department.
Sam Piercy, Deputy Commissioner of Operations.
Thank you. Would y'all like to begin with any response, or you just want to address some questions at this point?
We have opening comments. if we
Okay,
may.
Ms. Carney?
Good afternoon. Again, I'm Dr. Eve Carney, Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Education. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the importance of the Achievement School District and the department's strong concern that this bill would take a first step towards undoing an important choice and accountability option for the lowest performing schools in the state. Schools enter the ASD for one reason, they have underperformed or have performed in the bottom 5% of schools in the entire state for a minimum of 6 years. Prior to the establishment of the ASD in 2010, there was no statewide lever that ensured Tennessee districts had accountability for low-performing schools, and there was no statewide lever that would focus significant supports and resources to improve and turn around academic performance in their lowest performing schools. So what does that mean? That meant that years and years of students, thousands of Tennesseans, were graduated on to the next class, graduated out into their communities without receiving a quality education from their local district. These students left their schools ill-prepared for what lay ahead of them. By creating the ASD as a new alternative for students attending underperforming schools, students had hope for a better education, and we as a state declared that business as usual was no longer acceptable. After the ASD was created, school districts began to take action to intervene in their lowest performing schools to provide better educational opportunities for their students. The home LEA has multiple chances to implement their own interventions before a school is placed in the achievement school districts. And we saw innovative interventions like the iZone come out of and only having come from the creation of the achievement school district. Again, the accountability lever holding districts accountable. I will not sit here and deny that the work of the ASD, turnaround work in particular, is hard. It is, in fact, the hardest. And I've been at the department for 14 years. It is the hardest work I do every day. You are working with our most vulnerable students, those farthest behind academically, and trying to help them grow to change what's possible for them after high school. That's why over the years, we have seen some successes, and we have learned some really hard lessons. We have worked with this body, in fact, to stop doing what doesn't work and do more of what does work. Importantly, this body took action 2 years ago to ensure ASD would do more of what is working. What is now Public Chapter 490 of the Public Acts of 2021 was sponsored by Leader Lamberth and carried by Chairman White, reset and restructured the Achievement School District to drive higher rates of improvement in schools. And we're seeing bright spots of success. Since that bill passed, we have seen 12 schools in the ASD improve and rise above the 5th percentile since 2019. And 6 schools have even gone further and earned priority exit status. While the proposal before you today purports only to make a request of the federal government, it really is much more complex than that. It would eliminate one choice for students attending chronically underperforming schools, thus returning our state to business as usual, and more importantly, removing that statewide accountability lever that insists districts take responsibility for first intervening in their low-performing schools. I think it's really important to note that this structure is one where a school and a district must have the first option to turn around schools. And when that option, as we work with districts throughout those processes, they have multiple years. It is only when those schools are underperforming that the ASD becomes a viable option. In summary, we are philosophically opposed to House Bill 692. We are encouraged by what we have seen since 2019. And we believe that the changes first brought about by the changes we've made in 2019, that we have the right balance of a structure and supports in place to ensure that students attending the Achievement School District schools going forward have what they need to be successful. I've said this a few times. The ASD is an intervention. It is not a forever home for a school. Our job for which we are responsible is to focus solely on those schools and then to build them to a level where they can sustain that success after they leave that intervention. And I will say, Representative Parkinson has stated that this is just a merging of the Charter Commission and the ASD. That is actually not the way this works, because the Charter Commission serves as the appellate authority in this state. Yes, there is a pathway for higher performing schools to go there and apply there. But this is something that if this bill passes, these schools, when they leave ASD, would go back to their home district. And there would be no more chartering an opportunity. And so really look forward to this discussion about how we feel ASD needs to remain as an accountability lever and a choice option for families.
Thank you, Ms. Carney. I gave you extra time because I think you're speaking for the group right here in the introduction. Now we will go to Representative Parkinson. You're recognized while we're out of session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's good to be on the committee and be presenting the bill so you can actually ask questions of our speakers. And thank you for being here. But let me be clear and let me correct something. I absolutely did not say that this was a merger of the Charter Commission and the ASD. I've never said that. And so I want to make sure that we're emphatically clear that I did not say, and nor will I say, that this is a merger of the Charter Commission and the ASD. What I said was, so that, and please, if you don't mind, take these notes so that we're all on the same page, is that when schools exit the ASD, they have the choice of going to the Charter Commission or the LEA by law that we've already passed. Never said there was a merger of the ASD and the Charter Commission. So let me be emphatically clear on that. Also, let's talk about choice. So when it comes to school choice, and I'm glad you brought up the point of choice. When it comes to school choice, this is what I'm the poster child for what choice looks like. Because my daughter, she went to private school first. She went to charter school for all of her elementary school years. And then she went to traditional public, where she's about to graduate from the #1 high school in the Memphis metro area, Middle College High School. I don't live in the Middle College High School district. I made a choice. But the difference between the choice that I made and the choice that I think that you're referring to in regards to the ASD is I had the resources to make a choice, to drive my daughter down the street out of my neighborhood. So when you take over a school and you replace it with, let's say, a charter school in an underperforming school or high poverty area, those individuals don't always have the resources that I had to actually go and make a choice. So is it really a choice when there's only one school that they can choose from? Or is it a choice if you have the resources to actually choose and drive down the street and choose from all of the schools in the area? So that's not true choice. So let's not put the spin on this as if taking over a public school under the ASD is giving the parents a choice, because it's not. They're still forced to go to the same school in the same neighborhood. Now it's under the ASD, which in fact actually underperformed in most cases the schools that they took over. That's not a choice. That's a force.
Okay, I want to move this along. I want to recognize some other members. Let's go to Representative Butler.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. I have a question for you. As a business owner, I would agree with the sponsor's analogy. 13 years of failure and over $1 billion, and we see virtually no improvement. And you mentioned that there were success. I would like to know the percentage of improvement for the bottom 5%. Where we at? You said there's been improvement in 2019. What are we talking about? 6%, 1%? I mean, what are we talking about?
Ms. Carney.
Thank you for the question. First, I do want to clarify something on the dollars we're talking about here. These dollars are state and federal dollars that students have generated, that would have been generated either way, whether they attended an ASD school or whether they would have attended a Shelby County school. That is accurate. And that is one of the points I want to be clear about. We try really hard to, and have since I've been over this, make significant changes to the structure so that we are flowing as much money as possible to students. Our overhead is significantly less than that of a traditional district. So I did want to clarify that those dollar amounts are dollars that would have been generated on behalf and to support students, regardless of what district they answered in. So to your question about the performance, I can say that we have schools, and of course the pandemic set that back, but I can say that again, since 2019, we have had 12 schools perform above the 5th percentile. So it takes time to move schools out that are that low performing. And so I'm happy to tell you where we are.
Please.
So if I look at the success rate in the ASD for English language arts, the average success rate right now is 10%. For Shelby County schools, priority schools, it's 9.3%. In mathematics, the average ASD success rate right now is 6.1, which is not where we obviously want it to be. For Shelby County priority schools, it's 3.9%. And so again, I'm in no way saying that that's satisfactory. I'm just trying to show and demonstrate with actual numbers that we are making gains. It is hard work. It is slow work. I will say that we feel like we are in a place now that going forward, we have the right supports in place.
Follow up, please.
So let me be clear. You're telling me after 13 years and hundreds of millions of dollars, we're proud of the fact we're at 6% when the floor was at 5%? I mean, this whole system to me sounds like a total and utter failure. And I assure you, we could take that kind of money and put it into some rural districts like that I represent and take our 36% third grade reading levels probably up 10% with the amount of resources that we're talking about pouring into these schools. And we have no results here.
We have schools that have exited the priority list since 2019. We have exited 6 schools out from the priority list since 2019. Sir, I would agree with you. This is obviously not where I want these schools to be, but I definitely, we have demonstrated some success, not anywhere. I'm not trying to say that this is a glowing success. What I'm trying to say is that we are making those gains and we're making improvements in those challenging schools.
One more follow-up, then I'll go to Chairman Lafferty.
I would submit that if we've had 13 years and this amount of resources and we have minimal at best improvement, that we need to do something else because it's not working. I mean, the amount of dollars that we're investing, what return do we have? No business person would continue and invest in something this much of a failure.
I will also clarify for the committee that it has only been 10 years. The ASD was formed in 2010. The first schools did not come in until 12-13. So just for a point of clarity, it has been 10 years. But I just wanted to make that clarifying statement.
Sure. Chairman Lafferty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you answered my question already. My first question was going to be how much money would have been spent without the ASD being in place? And I believe that answer was the same amount.
Yes, sir.
So either way, that's a wash.
Yes, sir.
So my next question, before the ASDs were created, how many years, or I hate that I'm going to say this, but I am, how many years or even decades were the schools in arrears isn't the right word, but I don't know what term to use before that, before the ASD came about?
Thank you for the question. I would say anywhere from 8 to 12 plus years. I went back as far as from the time I joined the department, and we're talking about the same schools that districts had for years upon years upon years. And I went back that far, so that's about as far as I could go back. But a minimum, 10 to 12 years.
Chairman Lafferty.
And just to comment, with now over, sounds like 2 decades, is that right? 2 decades of being in a pretty rough spot. What can the state do? I mean, what else can the state do? If folks at home aren't concerned enough about it to take care of it, I mean, what can we do from Nashville?
I can tell you that is something I think about a lot. I think about it all the time. One of the things, and again, I've been over this since about 2018, 19. And I can say one of the things that we did that we restructured the school performance framework. At the end of the day, schools belong to their districts, and we are trying to make sure that we have the right accountability measures in place. We have revamped how to hold schools accountable, aligned with national best practices, aligned with the charter commission, so that if and when our schools exit the list, they are set up for success there. We've also restructured our office. We are no longer directly running schools. There is a 10-year limitation on being in the ASD. And so, yes, we had some schools reach that 10-year mark. But what we also learned in this decade was that we should not be in the business of directly running schools. And so we have a full charter model now. What I see as promise in that model is that the decisions are made at the school level for that school. I can tell you in my experience, we see district-led interventions can eat anywhere between 25 and 30% of a budget. And those are decisions that are not made at the school level. And I can say that having a full charter model allows those decisions to be made at the school level with less overhead. So we have a new structure that's a full charter model that is a smaller footprint because we can't focus on everything. We really need to hone in on those schools that need us the most right now. Again, it's an intervention. It is not forever. Our goal is to move them out as quickly as possible so they can move on and be successful long term. So we have a new structure with our central office. We've trimmed that down considerably. So to the sponsor's point about less government, we also wanted to make sure that we were being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. So we streamlined that central office structure as well. And so I feel like between how we're holding them accountable, having this lever really keeps the foot on the gas for the home LEA to intervene successfully in their schools. This is something that we frankly did not see. And I've been doing turnaround work at the department since 2008. And I can say it didn't happen before that. And so taking that kind of lever away is very concerning for the schools that are in those lowest performing categories. I wish I could say that, if we just do X or Y, we can fix it. We know that these schools need a great deal of support. They need the same thing everyone else needs. They need good teachers. They need good instructional materials. They need wraparound services. And so making sure that we support them, support the charters in doing that work. Again, I'm optimistic that we are going to continue to see gains to a place that I can come back and feel prouder than I can say that I am today, knowing that these gains are not acceptable to me or any parent that would have a child there.
Appreciate that answer. I appreciate your passion. I appreciate the passion of the sponsor. This is just a heartbreaking scenario. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, I'm going to try to wrap this. I'm not going to try to cut the debate short, but I'm going to try to wrap this up in 5 minutes. We got 2 bills with out-of-town guests that are here, and I don't want to cut them short. But I got a couple more. If you make your comments quick, Chairman Sapicki.
I make a motion to go back in session.
Any objection? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Department. Appreciate y'all's time. We are back in session. Chairman Sapicki.
Thank you very much. Members, I've been here for 5 years. I've been listening to this argument for 5 years. To get out of the priority list, that's the bottom of the bottom. And to hang our hats on getting out of the priority list, where you might take a school from 4% literacy rate to maybe 10% literacy rate. Yes, that is a success, but is it the success we want to be known for in Tennessee? The answer is no. Now, sometimes, and I hear my father telling me, be careful what you ask for, because you might get it. We have got to get these kids educated in the state of Tennessee, period. Doesn't matter what economic background you come from or who you are, or what color you are, you have to get educated, and we have to do everything we can to get those kids educated. We are looking at abject failure I hear myself from my baseball career arguing with my AAA baseball coach that if you just give me more time, I'll figure out how to hit the slider on the outside corner. And he kept telling me, no, you're done. And I was done. I think this is logical. I think we're asking the department, as we've tried this for so long, let's just try something different and see if we get better results. That's what I see in this. Now, I will tell you this. The date in here, sponsor, of July 1st, 2023, I think is impossible. I think you'd probably have to amend that to July of 2024 because we all know how the federal government works. And I don't want to put something here in front of this bill, if it moves forward, that would create a poison pill on this there's no way that we can get this executed in that time frame. I think this is a bill, and I've been wrestling with this back and forth in my mind. And I just can't say it's not time for a different option. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, let's go to Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Coffin. Approves the question.
The question has been called. I recognized him. Any objection to the question being called? There is the sponsor asked for a roll call vote. Representative McKenzie, you have called the question. Would you allow the sponsor of the bill?
Closing remark.
He can close. He can close. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Chairman Sapicki, I hear you loud and clear. We'll try to get that amendment on in finance, or we'll try to get that amendment on in the Senate. And you got my word on that. Or the floor. You got my word on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee, for your consideration.
Okay, members, we have the question called. Without objection, we have a roll call. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll? Members, yes vote is to pass it out to go to finance. Excuse me, calendar and rules. A no vote is to keep the bill here. Madam Clerk.
Representative Baum. Representative Baum votes aye. Representative Bolso. Representative Butler. Representative Butler votes aye. Representative Sapicki. Representative Sapicki votes aye. Representative Fritz. Representative Fritz votes aye. Representative Gant. Representative Gillespie. Representative Gillespie votes no. Representative Haston. Representative Haston votes aye. Representative Hurt. Representative Hurt votes no. Representative Jones.
Aye.
Representative Jones votes aye. Representative Lafferty. Representative Lafferty votes present, not voting. Representative Love. Representative Love votes aye. Representative McKenzie. Representative McKenzie votes aye. Representative Parkinson.
A resounding aye.
Representative Parkinson votes aye. Representative Reagan. Representative Reagan votes aye. Representative Ritchie. Representative Ritchie is present, not voting. Representative Stevens. Representative Stevens votes aye. Representative Warner. Representative Warner votes aye. Vice Chairman Slater. Vice Chairman Slater votes aye. Chairman White.
No.
Chairman White votes no. Chairman, you have 13 ayes, 3 noes, 2 present, not voting.
Thank you. House Bill 692 passes out to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee.
Members, we've got about 30 minutes left of committee, and we got some out-of-town guests. I'm going to go to item number 26 on your calendar, House Bill 1377 by Chairman Reagan. The bill is one. No. Okay. We got a motion and a second. Let me get my calendar over there real quick. Chairman Reagan, House Bill 1174. You are recognized. You got a motion and a second.
I'm sorry, sir. Can you give that House bill again?
I'm sorry, look at the wrong one. That is
1377.
1377, item 26. You're right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this bill is to provide a clear system for complaints regarding the prohibited concepts in the local education authority, public charter schools. If you recall, we passed the prohibited concepts some time back, charged the Department of Education for creating rules to create a complaint system, which they did. However, they ignored some of the legislative intent that was expressed to them. What this bill does is reestablish that intent and require them to modify their rules to say that. In their rules, to complain about the prohibited concepts being taught when they shouldn't be, they limited it to parents, students, and school employees. What this bill does is simply open that up to the taxpayers in the school district so that it would include anybody who's paying taxes to that school. It empowers those and increases accountability. It establishes how the schools must process a complaint to include publishing results or getting written results so that those can be referred to at a later date. With that explanation, I stand ready to answer questions.
Thank you, Chairman Reagan. And I just wanted to point out, you probably know this, it did fail in the Senate. Are you aware of that?
No, sir, I'm not.
Okay, I'm being told that. We can verify that, but before we go into too much discussion. Yes, it's confirmed that it's not moving forward in the Senate.
In that case,
But members, if he's, go ahead, sir.
I move to roll this to next year.
You want to roll this to first calendar of next year?
Yes, sir.
I tell you what, hang on, let me confirm something legal. Okay, they're positive it has not failed in the Senate Education Committee. Okay, so without objection, we'll just roll this to the first calendar of next year.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Let's go to item number 22, House Bill 1174 by Representative Hale. You got a motion and a second. Representative Hale, when you're ready, you got a motion second. You have an amendment on here. We'll recognize whenever you get ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. The amendment is 6606.
6606, amendment number 2 on your agenda. Yes, sir, that's right. And it does rewrite the bill. Members, any objection to adding that amendment to the bill for proper discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor add the amendment to House Bill 1174. Indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Okay, you're recognized on your bill.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman and committee. House Bill 1174 as amended will alleviate the financial burden on LEAs to protect students. SROs are utilized during school hours and school-sponsored events to ensure student safety. SROs can build relationship with students and ensure their safety while also enforcing laws and policies of the school. Under Amendment 6606, the requirement for schools to assign an SRO is removed. Under current law, schools are permitted to assign the SRO to each school, and so we have defaulted to current law for that. Schools are eligible for the grant funding. Even if they are not establishing their first SRO, this bill will still allow them to receive this funding and will not give a preference to those wishing to establish their first SRO. According to TCA 496402, a school resource officer is a law enforcement officer who is in compliance with all laws, rules, and regulations of the Peace Officers Standards and Training Commission. As we discussed last week, Chairman and committee and sub, and I also want to say thank you to those that offered input from the subcommittee last week. We see what a shortage there is. There's approximately 1,837 schools in the state, public schools in the state. 1,301 of those, according to the 2022 Safe Schools Report, 1,301 have existing SROs. So that leaves us with 536 that do not even employ an SRO. So this would help to provide that we have that protection and safety for our students.
Thank you, Representative Hale. We have one person who, guest who drove up to speak on this bill. Before we go any further, members, may I recognize that person, go out of session, recognize that person, then we come back for discussion. We're out of session. Let's bring up Director of Schools, William Curtis, Cannon County Schools. Welcome, sir. You're recognized. Just identify yourself for the live stream.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor to be with you today in representing not only Cannon County, but other superintendents that have been in and out of the room today. Our TOSS, Tennessee Organization School Superintendent Conference, just concluded earlier today. And so I have some of my fellow directors of schools behind me, some that you probably recognize from some of your districts. So I appreciate them and the Tennessee Organization of School Superintendents. I brought this bill, and by the way, I'm 37 years as a employee of Cannon County, 16 years of that as a elementary teacher, elementary or middle grades teacher, 6 years as a principal, 10 years as a U.S. government and sociology teacher. I will address this board when y'all did the civics bill in front of this committee several years ago. Representative Love grilled me on part of that back in the day, so I appreciate that, and some things still go on. And that civics bill did pass, and I appreciate that as a 10-year government teacher, and now I am 5 years as director of schools. One of the things that I learned going from a teacher of government to the director of schools position is I love teaching about theory of government, but the application thereof is a great task. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak to this. Seriously, we have 5 schools in Cannon County. We can only afford, the sheriff provides 2 SROs for Cannon County, leaving 3 schools that are not protected during the entire school day. I brought this need to my new representative, Michael Hale. And for full disclosure, Mike is my cousin, so please treat him well down here. We appreciated him, but I brought it to our new state senator, Senator Reeves, and talked with Senator Reeves about it. And they suggested and brought this bill to me, and looking at it, and other superintendents. I've been talking to superintendents all throughout the state of Tennessee. 536 schools are without full-time SRO protection. And I would ask this committee to send this on forward and hopefully that we can see that our schools are safe. I'm reminded of something that I sent to all of our employees here just the other day. And I said these words, that in regard to what has occurred in recent days, but I also said to her, we must all be observant, and that's to all of our employees. We must all be observant, whatever role we occupy, to always keep our kids safe. We remain vigilant to make sure that we keep our most precious assets, those of our children, safe in all of our schools. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and an honor to testify before the committee.
Thank you very much, Director Curtis. Members, we're out of session. Any questions to our guest while we're out of session? Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here. Do these SROs, will they answer to their sheriff and police chief, or to the school
Sheriff
principal
and Police
superintendent?
Chief, Representative Jones, thank you for the question. Our SROs, mainly across the state, unless it's a SSO or something, the answers directly to the Sheriff's Department. And we've had great partnerships with the police departments and sheriff departments across the state. So we appreciate the amount of cooperation that we do have and are very, very cognizant of that. Our SROs are not just a sheriff employee, but they are working hard, very hard all the time, working with our kids every single day in partnership with them. And so that's what we're desiring to do, is to keep our kids safe and in cooperation with the sheriff department.
You may follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would the SROs have the authority to use physical force and restraint on students, as we saw in Hamilton County just last year? We had a student where the situation was escalated because of an SRO. Would this?
An SRO is fully cognizant as a law enforcement officer on our campuses, so need to do whatever needs to happen, although they also have training. One of the things when I started working on this back in November and December was trying to work with our SSOs. And what I found out, gentlemen and ladies, I found out that the partnerships that we have are excellent partnerships, and the training is essential. The training element, gentlemen and ladies, is essential in making sure that the lines, the communication is there, the lines of command, Representative Jones, are there, and they understand what we are. But we're partners together, and making sure that they know and understand what's going on, not only because they're there every day. And I'll be glad to talk with you after session in regard to that.
Do you have a follow-up, sir?
Yes, final question. I've talked to educators in my school district and where I represent, and they recommended that we invest in school nurses and social workers and psychologists and counselors for students, because that's the need that they're seeing for people to support student health, mental health, and well-being, particularly for elementary school students. They don't need more. These are the resources that we have gaps of in my school district. Do you have adequate resources for these type of support for students in your school district?
We are always needing more. I do not have a social worker example for our district. Would like to have one, and hopefully that we can get one. Our counselors, we've used grants. We've used ESSER grants for that. We've increased our counseling capabilities. I do have, my fiance is a school nurse, and so I hear about school nurses quite often and the need for that. We in a smaller county like what I have, we tried it. We're getting more, and we're having to fund more school nurses. Absolutely. So I don't want to cloud those two issues, but I do believe that our priority is to keep our students safe and making sure that we're done. And I've talked with Chairman White in regard to this. And we've talked and discussed regarding the other bill that is going on. So it's our hope that we would all be partners together, no matter whether you're a school employee or you are a county employee as a sheriff's deputy, or you're an employee of the city that they're in as that city police department, that we're all working together to do good for our students. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you're recognized, Representative Jones.
Sorry,
Follow up.
this is my final question. And my last question, because I just want to make sure, we're thinking about the best interest of the youth. Do these SROs have any special training in addition to other law enforcement to particularly work with youth? Is there any additional training?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Jones, we have gone, what I learned as a part of that process, I got to know an SRO who is in an adjacent county, Rutherford County of mine. He is the former president of the National Association, and he's a certified trainer. And he had trained some of our officers as well. So I believe very carefully to this committee that this legislation is extremely important with the training piece of that they would have specialized training particularly for special needs children and others. I think that is a very critical piece of this, that they have the training and the appropriate training for that. So my own education on this, it's helped me because he is, and I'd love to get you in contact with him. One of the things I found out, if I can for a moment, Mr. Chairman, I found out we had a sociology student working on her PhD from London, England, talk to us, and she is researching SROs. And she is from the University of California, Berkeley. Now, how they found Cannon County, I don't know. She went to a SRO convention, But she is going to be in our district, and our board just approved this. She's going to be in our district using ethnocentric research all year long next year in our school system doing research about SROs, because there is in SROs in rural areas, the body of research that's out there is very, very limited. And so we were honored that she wanted to do research in rural Cannon County and to do this on a national scale. But that training piece that she's talked about there, that she's found out all over the country, Tennessee is leading that because we have certified trainers. And I'm sorry I rambled on. That's what directors do sometimes.
Thank you, sir. Members, I have no one else while we're out of session. And with that objection, may I go back in session? Okay, we're now back. Thank you, Director Curtis. We appreciate that very much. Have a couple people, and then we'll wrap this up. I got 3 members out in the audience. I want to get to their bills today before we run out of time. But let's go to Representative Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question on the bill.
Any objection to the question? Seeing none. We're on House Bill 1174. All those in favor of House Bill 1174 going out to finance indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Can I vote,
The
President?
ayes have it.
I'm voting President.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you, Mr.
Representative
Chairman.
Hill. Passes
Thank you, Mr.
that,
Chairman.
passed out to finance. Members, let's look at item number 18 on your calendar, House Bill 1261 by Chair Lady Moody. You got a motion and a second. Do you have an amendment?
We are working off Amendment 006063.
That is correct. Motion is second. Members, it rewrites the bill. Any objection to adding it to the bill for proper discussion? No objection. All those in favor of adding Amendment 6063 to 1261 indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Chair Lady Moody, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. And simply what this will do, this will require the Department of Education to develop and implement a process to notify parents of their child's potential eligibility to participate in the Individual Education Savings Account Plan for special needs children. And they will be making a report back to the Education Committee of the Senate and the Education Administration Committee of the House of Representatives on the process that the department develops. That's simply what it does.
Okay, with that explanation, members, we're on House Bill 1261. Chairman Sapicki, you have a question? Okay, the question been called. Any objection? Hear none. All those in favor of House Bill 1261 moving out to calendar and rules? Calendar and rules indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
The ayes have
Nay.
it. If you'd like to be recorded no, please see the clerk. Thank you, Chair Lady.
Thank you very much, committee and chairman.
Okay, members, let's now look at item number 20 on your calendar. This is House Bill 843 by Chair Lady Lynn. You have a motion second on the bill, but you also have an amendment. Could you give us a number?
I do, Mr. Chairman. It's Amendment 6005.
That is correct. Members, it also rewrites the bill. You got a motion and second, so no objection to adding it to the bill. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. You're now amended properly. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last year, this committee did very good work by establishing a process for parents who object to certain library books to be able to have a process to object and have the school board vote on these books, whether or not they should stay in the library or not stay in the library. And that was a wonderful thing. I found in my school district and several others that they're not getting to the library books very quickly. And so what this bill would do is set a time limit of 60 days from when a complaint is filed for the vote to occur by the school board. And should they not vote, the book would be deemed inappropriate, taken out of the library, but with an automatic appeal then to the State Textbook Commission. And that way we can resolve these issues much faster. The bill does something else too. It does make it clear that any book whose content meets the definition in the criminal code, Title 39 of obscenity, and there's several sections there with the definitions, that the book is deemed inappropriate. It's really not subject to a vote. If it meets that definition, it should not be in a school for K through 12 students. And the third thing that this bill does is it makes it clear that an LEA does not create a contemporary community standard as found in Title 39 under the definition of harmful to minors. In that, in Title 39 under obscenity, under harmful to minors, there is something called a contemporary community standard. And my district attorney had pointed out that we do risk the school boards by accepting some of these books that, many of us probably wouldn't accept, that they may be establishing a contemporary community standard, and then it would be harder to argue that this book, is obscenity. So this bill just makes that clear that a school board doesn't establish that, and that way, that would be a free territory in a court case. No school boards establishing a contemporary community standard.
Thank you, Chair Lady Lynn. It's at your discretion now. Now, this bill, I'm also been told, was not calendared in the Senate, but your discretion is whether or not you want to go forward with a vote.
I would like to. I'm hoping that they would consider this year. I think I was actually waiting for some other bills to resolve, and I probably ran it too late. But I am at the will of the committee. If you all feel it would be best to take this up next year, I'm completely at your will. If you feel that you'd like to proceed, the Senate could take it up now, or they could take it up next year.
Yeah.
At their choice.
Chairman Reagan, then come back to Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I understood your explanation, you said that the Senate had not taken it up, meaning they had not calendared it. Is
It
that
has
correct?
not been calendared, and officially, the Senate did close today. Now, whether or not it opens back up, that's another question. But it was not calendared as of today.
The bill remains active, though, for the
The bill
entire
remains
session.
active.
Thank you.
Representative Ritchie. Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Jones, then Ritchie. Representative Jones?
I was going to make a motion to send this to a summer study. I think since the education committee's closed, unfortunately. So I just had a motion to send it to summer study and hopefully take it up next year if that's your will.
Okay, that is a proper motion and seconded. So now we, as a committee, would have a vote whether or not you want to send it to summer study. Point of order, Chairman Reagan?
No discussion on the motion, sir.
You're recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I object to this motion to send it to summer study on the basis that the bill is still active in the Senate. And I further submit that we don't need summer study on this. Let the sponsor make the decision as appropriate. And for that reason, I can't support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members, we do have a motion before us, a proper motion. We're still discussion on the motion. I will go to Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I was sitting here listening and reading it, this is really a perfect type bill to go to summer study. It can be introduced next year. Nothing's going to happen in the Senate. But as I listened, there are days like 60 days. Have we conferred with the superintendents, TAS? Have we conferred with other things? I'm discussing the reason for going to summer study, and the reason for this bill going to summer study is there are a number of issues. We just heard a term introduced today, talking about kind of a consensus standard within an LEA that is really first time I would say any of us in this room have heard that concept of kind of a subculture. So this bill needs a little more work. So I fully support it going to summer study.
Okay, thank you, members. We can cut this short. There's a motion before us. when I call for the voice vote, those who wanted to go summer study, your vote will be yes. Those who do not say no. So at this point in time, without objection, all those in favor of the motion before us on House Bill 843, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The noes have it. It is not, the motion fails. We're now back to, yeah, I had not recognized you. I'm getting ready to go to Chair Lady Lynn.
Okay.
Going to Chair Lady Lynn.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for recognizing me. I wanted to talk a little bit about why the contemporary community standards is important. We've had some other bills this year. One is the, I guess you would call it the drag show bill. That bill depends on Title 39. We've had some other bills that depend on Title 39. And the risk of our school boards, maybe in the eyes of the law, establishing a contemporary community standard is there. And it really would be very helpful to pass this bill as soon as possible. But if the wisdom of the committee is that I bring it back next year, I'm certainly amenable to that idea. I just wanted to further explain why it's important that we have that passed into law.
Absolutely. I'm going to Representative Ritchie, and then we'll move on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question on the bill.
Okay. Properly motion. I recognized. Any objection to the question? Hearing none. All those in favor of House Bill 843 going out to calendar rules indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
The ayes have it. Moves out to calendar rules.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Let's go to item number 21 committee, which is House Bill 331 by Representative Davis. You got a motion and second. Representative Davis, let's see. Do you have no amendments? You're recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. And essentially what House Bill 331 does is it helps to equalize some of the salaries in our state special schools. In Tennessee School for the Blind and Tennessee School for the Deaf, we have these special teachers that have a unique special skill set. And unfortunately, even though they fall under the Department of Education, they're considered state employees. So a lot of time when we present automatic raises for teachers, these employees don't receive those. And so we also have some disparities between Nashville and Knoxville and Jackson. And so what we're trying to do with this legislation is ensure that we are making those teachers whole in their salary and valuing them. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, members, with that explanation, Chairman Sapicki?
Just for clarification, the funding for this is outside of TISA, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Further discussion on item House Bill 331, members? Any objection to the question then? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving House Bill 331 out to finance indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee.
I see Representative Hicks. Representative Hicks, you have a bill in this committee? I don't see any other members sitting out in the audience. I was getting ready to go to Chairman Haston, but we'll recognize you. Let's get your bill before us.
Thank you.
We're looking for it.
House Bill 663, Chairman. Item number 19.
On your agenda, item number 19, House Bill 663. Representative Hicks, you do have an amendment. What is the number?
5818.
We do have a motion second on the bill. Do I have motion second on the amendment? Okay. Members, any objection that rewrites the bill? Any objection to add the amendment to the bill? Hearing none, all those in favor of adding 5818 to House Bill 663 indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Representative Hicks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last year, we passed a bill allowing materials in libraries to be challenged as whether they are age appropriate. Under the law, when the materials are challenged, it must go before the local Board of Education or charter school governing body for that decision. This bill doesn't change any of that. What it does do is it allows for an administrative level stop with the LEA or charter school to see if the resolution can be reached. If no resolution is reached, then it goes to the local board or charter governing body for that decision. That is basically what this bill does, and it's my understanding that the textbook commission will design and provide guidance to the LEAs and charter schools on timing of and any other details necessary to implement this.
Thank you. Representative Slater, you're recognized first with questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, sponsor. If I understand this bill correctly, then if a parent has an objection to material in the library, the school library, then they would take that objection to the school library personnel. Is that correct?
You recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. They would take it to the school library, and it's my understanding that the LEA, the school, will set up a committee for that to be taken to.
Follow up.
Currently, if a parent has an objection to material in the library, they would take that to elected school board members. Is that correct?
You recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is correct, currently.
Thank you. And thank you for speaking to me in your office about this. And as I stated in the office, I can't support this bill because I believe that objections from parents should go to elected members of the public as opposed to school personnel. Thank you.
Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we just had a very similar bill to this, and they just seem to be a bit conflicting to me. With Representative Lynn's bill that she just presented, can you reconcile, or they don't seem complementary? There seems to be some conflict of the processes that we're creating that this committee just passed Representative Lynn's bill. Can you explain how this would merge with that or conflict with that, or would we have to reconsider that?
Representative Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I cannot. I don't know what her bill does.
Can we go into session? Oh, sorry.
You recognize, sir.
Can we go into session to confer with legal?
We may. Without objection, we're out of session. We'll recognize legal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Katie Robertson, Office of Legal Services. As amended, House Bill 843, which was Representative Lynn's bill, it has an effective date of July 1, 2023. This amendment that we are considering, it is upon becoming a law. If both bills pass, then House Bill 843 is a rewrite, so the changes made in this amendment would not be included upon July 1, 2023.
Is that helpful? Okay. Any other questions while we're out of session? Okay, without objection, we're back in session. Okay, Representative Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman. Sponsor, just my understanding on this is I understand the current process is somebody objects, it's going to go to the school board, which a colleague mentioned. All this is doing is adding one extra step. But initially, if that layer decides that it's not appropriate, then the book could be removed. If they don't think that it's appropriate, then it remains, and then it would end up going to the school board. Is that correct?
You recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is correct. I mean, I think what they're running into is a lot of this stuff is very simple answers. So if it's a simple fix, if it's a question, that necessarily shouldn't have to go to the school board when it can be fixed right there on the local level. And I think it's just trying to make this simple. Actually, there's a lot of LEAs that it's my understanding that they're doing this already. So this is really just clarifying because it's just giving good direction and trying to set a step out of that.
Okay, Chairman Sapicki.
And the sponsor understands that if we would pass this bill and Chairman Lynn's bill would pass, your bill would be in effect until July of 23. So it wouldn't, if you believe in what you're doing, which I think you do, you may want to have an amendment for Chairman Lynn's bill to add this process into hers so that now what you're trying to do is going to be implemented in July and it stays there. Otherwise, you're going to have a bill that's going to be good for 2 months.
Representative Hicks.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Chairman. That's the reason that, would it be okay if we roll this bill till next week?
We may. Would you like to make a motion, roll it to the next
Make a
week's
motion?
calendar?
Yes.
Okay.
please.
So without objection, we're going to roll House Bill 663 to next week's calendar. And members, we got a great committee, but we are out of time. Any
Thank you.
objection to
Thank you.
adjournment? Yeah. We're adjourned.